Hi, I'm Billy Oglesby, the Interim Dean of the Jefferson College of Population Health at Thomas Jefferson University. I'm also honored to serve as the chairperson of the effort to create academic certification and accreditation for graduate programs in healthcare quality and safety in partnership with CAMI. In this section, I'll review why and how we created the certification and accreditation framework for graduate programs in quality and safety. Medical error is the third leading cause of death in the United States, and this includes a variety of things, including accidents or interventions that don't achieve their desired results, like an ineffective treatment. Also, an intervention that wasn't implemented correctly, like a treatment pathway or regimen that wasn't followed appropriately, using the wrong intervention entirely, or any other deviation from the care process that can create harm for patients. And the U.S. is not alone. In a recent report by the National Academy of Medicine, poor quality of care is responsible for about 10 to 15% of deaths in low and middle income countries. To help address these challenges, numerous workforce development programs have been created to focus on how to create systems that continually learn and adapt so that medical error is reduced or eliminated. In the field of healthcare quality, that started first with continuing education programs, and then it matured into academic coursework that was included in other training programs for healthcare providers. And now it's matured even further into the development of standalone graduate degree programs in healthcare quality and safety. And in fact, just in the last 10 years, the number of standalone graduate programs in healthcare quality and safety has grown from 2 to more than 10. The reason for this maturity and acceleration is because the field has also evolved to integrate principles of effective quality improvement found in other industries like manufacturing and the airline industry. The importance of data and the science of human factors and organizational behavior has also been integrated into the curriculum, all with the purpose of identifying the best practices in quality improvement and safety and integrating them to promote overall population health improvement. Recognizing this maturation of the field and the significant growth in academic programs, 20 people from 14 universities and professional associations met in September of 2017 to discuss the need for academic accreditation as a way to raise all boats and enhance the field overall. It was a big step because accreditation is expensive and time-consuming, and it would likely require many of the programs to change their curricula and operations. And ultimately, would all of this be worth it? As you might have guessed, we did end up deciding to work together to create a framework for academic accreditation. And we initially mapped out the process taking about 3 years, but we actually finished sooner than we thought. We decided to take a two-step approach, which is common in academic accreditation, where we would start first with academic certification, which is kind of like diet accreditation, as a level-setting process. And then we would build out the full accreditation framework. To get all of this right, we recognized the need early on for significant input, both inside of our academic organizations, but also outside subject matter experts and professional associations to make sure that what we were building not only reflected the state of the science, but also reflected the needs of employers and the broader professional community. One of the most important steps we took early on was carefully defining the meaning of patient safety and healthcare quality. You might be surprised to know that there is no broad consensus on these concepts. So to do this, we consulted numerous sources, including the World Health Organization, the U.S. Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, the National Academy of Medicine, which used to be called the Institute of Medicine, the National Quality Forum, the Canadian Patient Safety Institute, and the academic leaders like Dr. Joseph Giron and others. All of that work and many, many discussions ultimately formed what we would eventually agree to be the operational definitions of patient safety and healthcare quality that we would use to guide our process. And as you see here, we defined patient safety as the prevention and mitigation of errors and adverse effects associated with the delivery of healthcare that may result in temporary or permanent injury to patients, families, and caregivers. For healthcare quality, we agreed that the definition would be the degree to which healthcare services for individuals and populations increase the likelihood of desired health outcomes, encompasses the domains of safety, effectiveness, efficiency, timeliness, equitable care, patient-centered care, and is informed by best practice evidence.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Mercado, the CEO of the National Association for Healthcare Quality. I'm excited to be here with you today, and I'm excited to talk to you about the strong collaboration opportunities that we have with CAMI. Just a little bit of background on NAHQ. NAHQ believes that workforce readiness is key to delivering on quality and safety. We also know that to reduce variability in healthcare delivery, we need to first reduce the variability in healthcare quality competencies. NAHQ contributes to that by developing assessments, competencies, and by offering standardized training, education, and certification. So I want to talk to you just for a minute about the educational pathways for quality and safety training, because they're quite different than the educational pathways that we see in any clinical discipline. Here I have an example of medical training. The path for medical education is well worn. We all know that the standard process is that someone who wants to be practicing medicine will go to medical school. They will go to residency. They will probably have a fellowship. They will become licensed to practice medicine, and then they will become board certified. And they will continue to learn throughout their career, lifelong learning, continued professional development, all within the structure of that board certification and pre-licensure process. This is very different from a quality and safety perspective. Quality and safety training does not have well-worn academic educational pathways, so it's up to us to create them. When we take a look at CAMI and its objectives, and we take a look at NAHQ, we can see some really strong alignment. The accreditation through CAMI ensures students have a quality educational experience. Accreditation also ensures employers that graduates are well prepared for their management responsibilities. And accreditation ensures that graduate programs assess best practices and really aspire to high quality standards for their student body. This is really aligned with the direction that NAHQ is headed, because NAHQ believes that workforce readiness is the key to delivering on quality and value. We also know that, like I said before, we've got to reduce the variability in those competencies. Employers are expecting the employees that they hire, graduates of your programs, to come to work ready to contribute productively on day one. And by having a strong alignment and a solid competency base, students will be prepared to do that. So NAHQ's contribution, again, is really through the competency development. NAHQ has developed a competency framework that has 8 dimensions, 29 competency statements, and 486 observable behaviors stratified across operational, managerial, and executive functions. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We also offer standardized assessments, training, and certification. Speaking of certification, NAHQ has the only accredited certification in quality and safety. And that certification is held by almost 13,000 individuals. Accreditation matters to those who are participating with CAMI, and it really matters to NAHQ. We believe it sets the bar and really helps best prepare our students and those who are involved in lifelong learning for the road ahead. Together, we are really promoting standardization and harmonization. Educational training programs really do fill a unique need, and we know that it is very important for each program to have something that is special and unique about the offering that they put into the market. I also believe that it's increasingly important that foundational competencies in healthcare quality are standardized and consistent across all clinical and non-clinical disciplines. What this does is allow healthcare professionals to have a common vocabulary, a common tool set for quality, and to bring that with them throughout their entire career. And NICU's competency framework does just that. Here's a quick visual of the competency framework. And as I mentioned, 8 dimensions, you can see them in the center, 29 competency statements around the edges. And not shown here are the 486 observable skills and behaviors. So let's take a look at a little more depth. These are the 8 dimensions of NICU's competency framework: quality review and accountability, professional engagement, quality leadership and integration, performance and process improvement, population health and care transitions, data analytics, patient safety, regulatory, and accreditation. These are the foundational elements that really shape the competency framework. I want to give you a little deeper look into the competency work that NICU has done and share with you what this looks like in depth. So again, here, the dimension is patient safety. The competency is collaborate to analyze safety risks and events. And here we have the skills stratified against operational, managerial, and executive functions. NICU's Healthcare Quality Competency Framework, which, by the way, has been validated twice in the market, first by those doing the work of healthcare quality, and second by those employing the people and leading the people doing the work of healthcare quality. This resource tells us all of the things that they should be doing, and we have 29 of these worksheets that are mapped to the competency framework. So when we take a look at where NICU and CAMI really work together and the synergies that exist there, we can complete a simple crosswalk to see really how this all comes into play. And when we look at that, we see definite alignment in safety, performance and process improvement, quality review and accountability, health data analytics, population health, quality leadership and integration, regulatory and accreditation, and more. So I am delighted with the opportunity for NICU to have such a strong partnership with CAMI. NICU is so delighted also too to be supporting the academic programs with those foundational competencies. We know that those foundational competencies will serve the students and their employers for a long time to come. So that can be NICU's contribution here to really support that level of alignment and really being able to hardwire some of those competencies directly into the programs. So that concludes my remarks for today. Again, thank you. A great handshake between NICU and CAMI. Thanks a lot to Anthony Stanowski for his leadership. Appreciate working with Anthony a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at smercado@nicu.org.
Hello, I'm Dr. Annette Valenta, Professor Emerita, and until my 2019 retirement, Director of Graduate Studies for the Patient Safety Programs in the College of Medicine at the University of Illinois, Chicago. The UIC program is a founding member of the CAMI initiative to accredit programs in healthcare quality and patient safety. I chaired the CAMI Competency Development Committee for Healthcare Quality and Safety. I'll call it by its acronym from now on, HQS. And I was a member of both CAMI's Standards for Certification Committee and the Executive Steering Committee for Accreditation of Programs in Healthcare Quality and Safety. Today I'll discuss the content domains and explore examples of competencies that were created by the Competency Development Committee for those HQS programs seeking certification and accreditation through CAMI. The HQS profession is evolving, and it must travel the same path taken by all professions, which includes initial professional education through programs formally accredited. Here's an overview of how the Competency Committee developed the 13 content domains that are now part of the CAMI accreditation standards. Following agreement within the Competency Development Committee on the definition of the components of the discipline, healthcare quality and patient safety, now published in the CAMI HQS standards, our next step was to agree on those spheres of activity and knowledge that are required for practice in the field, what we called the content domains. Having no common definition of the discipline and the domains it encompasses, academic programs in North America have individually decided what content they should teach. That means that graduates could differ in their areas of competence at the time of graduation based on the program from which they graduated. As a profession evolves, industry assumes that those they hire from programs across North America share a common foundation in their education, which is now represented by the content domains. Meeting the content domains does not prevent programs from having spheres of excellence or focus, but the general educational foundation should be similar across accredited programs, given that the curriculum must address each of the content domains for the purposes of accreditation. To develop these content domains, rather than starting at baseline, the committee members preferred to start with the results of a previously published study produced through the synthesis of literature that examined the competencies already published in influential position papers for patient safety and quality improvement. By starting with the outcome of that published study, the committee was able, over the course of about 4 months in spring 2018, to deliberate and reduce to 12 themes those 30 themes identified in the study. These 12 themes were officially named content domains. Through the period of public comment, the theme of human factors and health informatics was split, resulting in 13 content domains. Over the course of the summer, each domain was defined, and through the fall, committee members identified 2 knowledge, skill, and attitude components for each domain and wrote examples of 2 measurable competencies derived from those components. The content domains and their definitions are included in the CAMI standards. The knowledge, skills, and attitude components and the exemplar competencies are anticipated to be included in an upcoming publication. The final 13 content domains found in the CAMI standards are listed on this slide, from safety and error science to patient and family-centered engagement. There are many educational programs today that either have already or are in the process of changing paradigms from a curriculum based on content to one based on competencies. In this new paradigm, the educational encounter moves from one of acquiring knowledge to applying knowledge. Assessment tools become performance indicators that assess students mimicking tasks rather than some proxy of their competence in those tasks. Student performance is evaluated against a standard threshold, not against the student's peers. Finally, it's not so much did they pass the final exam, something summative, but rather through formative assessment, are they moving toward what has been defined as competence in the content domain in question. Why do we have to change paradigms? This discipline is closely tied to improvements in healthcare cost, access, quality of care, and quality of life. We can no longer continue to emphasize rote performance based on an increasingly long list of content, but rather future healthcare professionals must demonstrate an understanding and application of principles that will prepare them for learning new skills and techniques needed in future practice. Their underlying knowledge, skills, and attitude, built through curriculum, will need to be applied in many pathways as their future careers evolve. When I first started on my path of understanding the idea of competence, competencies, and assessment, I found the road littered with definitions and scholarly debate. The CAMI HQS Standards Criterion 3 overview gives some straightforward definitions and describes important concepts that were used by the Competency Development Committee during their deliberations. A competency is an observable ability of a health professional integrating multiple components such as knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes. Since competencies are observable, they can be measured and assessed to ensure their acquisition. Competence is the ability to effectively engage in activity. I like to think of it as competencies acquired contribute to competence. A competency statement reflects the related knowledge, skills, and attitudes someone must demonstrate for competence, measured at a point in time. In the case of most of the HQS founding member universities, that point in time was at the time of graduation from a master's degree, which is reflected in the HQS Standards Criterion 3B. Now, a set of competencies defines a program's curriculum and course of study. Now, a quick aside. While the HQS standards state that programs may determine the appropriate scale for determining student competency attainment, likely at the time of graduation, graduate education does not produce experts. Expertise takes about 10 years to develop. Most likely, at the end of a master's degree, the level of competent will be attained, meaning the student can solve new problems, having a conceptual understanding and the ability to actively make decisions without looking up the rules. Depending on the student's background and time in practice, they may be proficient, so they will exhibit systems thinking, knowing what is important to pay attention to because of a deeper understanding of the rules and theories. A quick refresher about writing a competency statement. Remember that each competency statement must reflect the concepts of knows, cognitive. The higher the level, the more complex the mental operation. Of skills, ability to do or kinesthetic. It requires practice, and it's measured in terms of speed, precision, procedures, or techniques in execution. And finally, of attitudes, affective. The higher the level, the more involved, committed, and self-reliant. There are many lists of verbs for each of these taxonomies and many rules published on the internet. Every educator I know, including myself, has their favorite. Find one and use it as you write your knowledge, skills, and attitude statements that you use to build your competency statements. Typically, for graduate work, you would be looking at verbs that reflect the concepts towards the top, not at the base of each triangle. As an example, analyzing, evaluating, creating, not remembering. Remembering typically is thought of as reflecting undergraduate cognition. Let's look at an example of writing a KSA, a knowledge, skill, attitude statement, and its resulting competency using one of the 13 content domains. The content domain is health informatics, which is defined as the interdisciplinary field that draws upon the fields of information science, information technology, and social and behavioral science as applied to health. Health informatics is the application of health information technology in the interdisciplinary field that studies and pursues the effective uses of biomedical data, information, and knowledge for scientific inquiry, for problem solving and decision making, and it's motivated by efforts to improve human health. This content domain encompasses concepts of stakeholder analysis, adoption of technology, and socio-technical systems. One example of a knowledge statement, what the student should know in this content domain at the time of graduation at the level of analysis. Remember, watch your verbs. Bloom's taxonomy is explain the characteristics of an information communication process in integrated care. An example of what the student should be able to do at the time of graduation at the level of manipulate precision in the psychomotor taxonomy, again, watch those verbs, is implement information communication processes to promote efficient and effective information sharing among interprofessional teams to reduce errors. An example of what we would expect to be the attitude demonstrated by the student at the time of graduation at the level of valuing in the affective taxonomy is value the significance of timely and accurate information communication systems across the continuum of care. And now you're going to funnel that knowledge, skill, and attitude and write a competency statement that reflects those ideas. Maximize the use of information technology to share timely and accurate patient data across organizational and professional practice boundaries. If we assume that written statement is a competency that we expect to be able to observe and assess at the time of graduation, we would now stop, turn around, and look back at our curriculum and see how we can scaffold coursework either in a single course through field work or across a series of courses or activities to ensure the student attains that competency at the time of graduation. This then brings us to the assessment. The standards state that the program should incorporate a range of assessment methods, both direct and indirect, to measure student progress. Let's continue with our previous example of a possible competency statement at the time of graduation for the content domain, health informatics. Again, these statements are examples. The precise statements developed by an individual program is up to that program, but each content domain must be addressed somewhere in the curriculum. I personally find it easier to look at the individual components of that competency to plan those direct and indirect methods of assessment appropriate for the competency. For each assessment, of course, you must establish and share with the students the scoring guide by which they'll be evaluated, your rubric. To measure how much the student knows about the task, you might use direct assessments, such as assignments. To measure how skillfully the student performs the task, you might use an indirect assessment, like peer evaluation of team participation in the task. Finally, to measure attitude, you might develop a rubric to grade your observations of attitudes about the task in class and online discussion. Ultimately, you are assessing the students meeting the written competency in health informatics, but you're doing so through a combination of methods that you've developed specifically through your rubric to assess that competency. If this is happening over a series of courses, you need to look at how the individual rubrics scaffold that attainment of competencies at the time of graduation. I have included a full reference list of materials from which this presentation was drawn, and I hope this brief discussion today brings further insight to the CAMI Healthcare Quality and Safety Standards Criterion 3. Competencies, curriculum, and teaching and learning methods.
Hello, my name is Allison Hall. I am the Program Director for Healthcare Quality and Safety Programs at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. I also sit on the CAMI board, and I chair the candidacy committee for the commission. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about HQS accreditation criteria. And before I do, I want to alert you to the fact that CAMI has housed on its website a handbook that details all the information you need should your program want to become accredited by CAMI. So the process or the journey to accreditation is several-fold. It generally begins with a program declaring that it's eligible to become accredited. And by that, we mean that the program met certain baseline criteria, including university where the program is housed is accredited by a regional body, such as SACS. The second stage is that the program submits a candidacy application, essentially asking that they be considered a candidate for accreditation. There are several criteria that you must document and adhere to in order to be considered a candidate, including having a fully developed curriculum and a set of associated competencies. Once you submit your candidacy application to the candidacy committee, the committee will review your application, make some recommendations, and then also make a recommendation to the accrediting council with regard to whether or not that program ought to be considered a candidate. Once you are considered a candidate program, you will embark on a self-study year, basically a year of record where you're documenting all the things that you're doing within the program. Within e-accreditation, which is CAMI's portal for uploading information, you will see the entire set of criterion, and you will be asked to document all that you're doing, your curriculum, your syllabi, and other information about how the educational content is delivered. After your self-study year, you will have a visit by a group of accreditors, visitors, if you will, who will look at everything that you have submitted, reviewed everything that you've submitted, as well as requests to have conversations with your program leadership, your university leadership, your alumni, other key stakeholders, where we're sort of really looking under the hood and trying to understand what the program is all about and what the program is doing. Once that visit is completed, the site visitors will make a recommendation to the accrediting council about whether to accredit the program or not. The council takes that under an advisement and votes to recommend to the board of directors to CAMI about whether or not the program be accredited or not. And then after that, the program becomes accredited. So now I want to walk through the various criterion that a program must meet in order to become accredited. The first criterion has to do with the program's mission, values, vision, goals, and support. These are really the sentences or the statements that document what the program is all about. Generally, as a site visitor, as somebody who's reviewing your program, we really like to start to look at the mission. Who are the students that you're trying to cater to? What are your overarching goals? That is, what kinds of students are you targeting, and where do you hope your students will be placed? But we believe that the mission, in essence, defines everything else that you're doing. And so that's a very key and very important statement. The vision is very aspirational. So essentially what the vision is trying to document, or what we're looking for in the vision, is where do you want to go? Who do you want to be in the future? Your values reflect your commonly held beliefs, generally things like excellence, commitment to diversity, commitment to inclusion, those kinds of things. And so we're looking for those statements as well. And then finally, which is quite important to visitors, is that we're looking for a set of goals, objectives, and performance outcomes. Really, what forms the basis for your strategic planning? A key thing that site visitors look for is not only what are you doing now, but how are you planning for the future, and what kinds of things are you putting in place to plan for the future, and how are you documenting how well you're doing? The next set of criteria has to do with students and graduates. CAMI thinks it's very, very important that you make information available, usually on your website, to prospective students. That is, we want students to be able to compare and contrast programs. It doesn't, what we're really sort of thinking here is that some students, for example, may look for a program that has a heavy emphasis on data analytics. Other programs may decide that they are really emphasizing leadership skills. And so we want students to be able to compare and contrast and be able to pick the program that best suits their needs. So we look for information, we look to make sure that information about the students, about the program, if you will, is available to students on your marketing or within your marketing materials. We are also looking for understanding about how you recruit students and the admission criteria. So we're looking for documentation of that, as well as how you support students with regard to career services, academic advising, as well as making sure that stakeholders are robustly and well involved in the planning process for the program. And then finally, it's quite important that we monitor graduate achievement. How well are your students doing once they become graduates and they've entered the work world? That is your program really sort of achieving what it's supposed to achieve with respect to graduate educations? Are graduates seeing that benefit once they've graduated? The third criterion, which is in my mind, I think is the meat of everything, is the curriculum. So essentially what we're looking for are a set of competencies, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means for healthcare quality and safety, but essentially we have 13 domains within the quality and safety criterion that programs must document that they're teaching to their students, and then a set of competencies that are aligned with those domains. Site visitors also are looking for teaching and learning methods. And so how are you teaching your students and how are your students learning? And because this is a graduate program, one of the things that we are particularly interested in understanding is your division between sort of lower levels of teaching and assessment methods versus higher level of teaching and assessment methods. Now, again, remember I said earlier that we think a lot about the mission. And so how you divide your activities between higher and lower order may very well depend on the qualifications of the students who are admitted to your program. So say, for example, you have students who really are right out of school and have very little experience in healthcare quality and safety. You may, in that instance, have a few more, you may then, in that instance, sort of trend a little bit more towards lower levels of teaching, that is lectures, certainly in the initial stages of your program, as opposed to higher levels, higher level approaches to teaching, which can include simulation exercises. However, it is important to recognize that CAMI considers the master's degrees that we are looking at to be graduate education. And so we really are thinking about whether or not you are developing your teaching and assessment methods that sort of meet principles around adult learning. And so even though some programs may have a greater proportion of lower level teaching and assessment methods relative to other programs based on their mission and the students that they're serving, overall, we are looking for a trend towards higher level teaching and assessment methods, and certainly over the duration of the program, an increasing emphasis on higher level teaching and assessment methods. So I mentioned that when we think about teaching, lower level really refers to things like lectures and those, sort of standing in front of the classroom and delivering a lecture. And when we think about higher level teaching approaches, we think of things like simulation exercises or case studies and the like. Similarly, with assessment methods, a lower level assessment method could include something like a multiple choice test, but not always, because you could build within those multiple choice tests very thoughtful, higher level assessment approaches. But generally, tests are considered to be a lower level form of assessment, whereas consulting projects might be a higher level of assessment method. The fourth criterion has to do with characterizing the faculty. So really looking at faculty teaching service. CAMI looks to make sure that the folks who are teaching in the program are qualified, and they can be qualified either based on an academic degree or substantial years of experience in healthcare quality and safety. We look for things like the degree to which the faculty are diverse and representing the community that you're serving. We are looking for the degree to which the faculty as a unit has responsibility for admitting students, evaluating their performance, defining their needs, as well as a record of scholarship in quality and safety. And then, of course, we're also looking to see if faculty are sort of keeping up with the current research in the development of their curriculum, and that they are routinely incorporating new findings and new evidence within the HQS curriculum. I'm going to go back quickly to competencies, curriculum, and teaching and learning methods, and just emphasize one last thing that I didn't talk about earlier, and that is that CAMI is also looking for programs to document competency achievement over a period of time. And so that's another sort of key thing or key component of the process, your ability to actually show that students are meeting your competency, are meeting some level of competency within the 13 content domains. And then finally, to the last slide, one of the things I just want to point out, especially for individuals who are very familiar with CAMI and the role CAMI has played in accrediting healthcare management programs, is to really point out the similarities and differences between the two accreditation processes. And the truth of the matter is that there is, in fact, very little difference. In fact, as I mentioned to you at the start of this presentation, when I outlined the process is in fact very, very similar. Again, eligibility, candidacy, self-study, site visit, and accreditation, leading to accreditation. The big difference, I think, between the two domains, if you will, is that within the HQS program, we have specifically identified a set of content domains which are listed here that we want programs to address within their curriculum. And so we're looking for competency statements that address each one of these domains when we are assessing a program. In contrast, the healthcare management programs have somewhat more flexibility in that we have identified 5 broad areas, but we are really relying on the programs to define within that first content area, the healthcare sector and healthcare management area. We're asking programs to define what they think they are teaching and what they mean by the healthcare sector and the healthcare management areas. And so we're asking programs to actually define that for CAMI. So in the healthcare management programs, there's a lot more flexibility in defining the content of the program and the curriculum, whereas in HQS, we have specifically identified the 13 domains that we want programs to address. The reason for that is that there's a long history of healthcare management accreditation or accrediting graduate programs in healthcare management. And so we feel fairly confident that programs, that the field is very, very well defined, if you will. In contrast, education in healthcare quality and safety is relatively new. And so we wanted to be a little bit more prescriptive in helping programs think about what it is that they're teaching. So that's all I have for you right now. Certainly, if you want to contact me, feel free to do so. Again, I'm Allison Hall at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions about becoming accredited about accrediting your graduate program in healthcare quality and safety. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dr. Terry Cheneau, Department Chair for Jacksonville University's Healthcare Quality and Safety Program. I will discuss course and program development, faculty development, and some innovations that we have developed at Jacksonville University for our healthcare quality and safety programs to highlight the healthcare quality and safety competencies. We've actually launched our program this year, and we have a Master's of Science in Healthcare Quality and Safety, a postgraduate certificate in Healthcare Quality and Safety, and most recently we launched a Master's of Science in Nursing in Healthcare Quality and Safety. Moving along to course development, I will use a course that I am actually the instructor for as an example. HQS 503, which is Improvement Science, Human Factors and Systems Thinking. It's a 3-credit course, 8-week sessions, and 100% online. We've embedded in each syllabus the CAMI HQS competencies. As you will see, we've identified safety and air science, improvement science and quality principles, evidence-based practice, human factors, professionalism, leadership, systems thinking, and interprofessional collaborative work. Moving along to HQS faculty development, when we recruited our faculty that many were subject matter experts, but perhaps they might need some training in online and course development. We planned an in-depth faculty orientation with a course and syllabus development and provided an overview of the CAMI HQS competencies, and then we proceed on to college curriculum approval. I work with each faculty member to make sure each course is integrated and is meeting the competencies. We've also established a collaboration with NAEQ, and we have an internal instructional designer to have consistency among course format. We have ongoing faculty meetings to provide online teaching expectations for best practices, and each course winds up with an IDEA student course evaluation. I'd like to share some tips for healthcare quality and safety innovation. I am developing a semester healthcare quality and safety chat with the chair session to invite current students, incoming students to assist with success. I'm a former patient safety officer, so I can provide coaching on career development. We've already established an annual successful interprofessional patient safety forum that is regional, and we bring in international quality and safety presenters. We also award the Robert Ware's Patient Safety Leadership Award at this venue, and it gives an opportunity to engage the JU healthcare quality and safety faculty and industry experts. It's also a wonderful opportunity for the students to attend because we have sponsorship from every major healthcare organization in the region. I've included my name and contact information if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for watching CAMI's webinar on healthcare quality and safety accreditation. For more information or to learn about additional learning opportunities that CAMI has to offer, please visit www.cami.org/CLC. Thank you.